A round character, wouldn't that be like a character whose personality like truly changes like from the beginning to the end?
Doesn't necessarily need to change, but what's a flat character? Because flat and round are in opposition, aren't they?
Complex character, kind of more depth to them.
Yeah, that they have like significant motivations, maybe their personality is shown in much more detail.
That would be more like there's so much to do.
Absolutely, yeah. So think 2D, 3D, we were using the term complex, weren't we, last lesson? Yeah. All right, so let's run through and just hold up our definitions. I've had a quick scan around the room. I think most people have flat and round, so we'll start with those. Awesome. So I'm seeing here flat characters. We've got the word shallow, not much to them. Reasonably one-dimensional character. Good. Limited depth. Lovely. No depth. Basic. Shallow. Great. So flat character feels really straightforward. Two-dimensional. Only one perspective.
Tom? At what point does a flat character become a rounded character? So like, what is the differentiation between them?
Oh, excellent question. Let's throw it out to the class. Okay. What were some of the elements? Because last lesson we were bringing together, weren't we, some of the ways in which we might have an authentic character. So we've been using lots of different synonyms like complex, authentic, round, and working out what the point is that they kind of transition from flat into round, complex, authentic, whatever words we're using to describe them. What do we think, Ishan?
I mean, I guess the point where they switch from having really black and white models to more grey area models, so where they're contrasting in their behaviour.
Okay, so we looked at contradictions, didn't we, when we were looking at Nora's character, like the idea that there were contradictions in her actions as opposed to her desires, maybe. Tom, in all honesty, I think that today's lesson will help us to flesh that out a little bit. But great question, because like people and characters, we are not necessarily black and white, but in the play, and this kind of shifts us into our investigation for today, there are some characters, and I've already overheard a couple of you talking about like, well, what about Krogstad? Does he change? So we're going to be looking at some of these characters, but I just want to double down and make sure that we're really happy with the terminology so that we can use it to describe the ways in which Ibsen is using particular characters. All right, so round characters are, because they are oppositional to flat characters, we've got complex, depth, good, 3D, we've had contradictions, yeah, maybe motivations, desires, value systems, I overheard that in your discussions. So all of those things make a character more rounded, all right? And we're going to investigate today, well, which characters in A Doll's House are more flat, which are more rounded, but more importantly, we're thinking about why. Why does Ibsen choose to use characters that are flatter versus rounder? All right, let's have a look at static then. What are static? At the end of this lesson, we'll see how, whether we agree with our initial ideas. All right. Okay, Dankeschön. Yeah, there's some. We can come back to him. Whoop. Hopla, Dankeschön. All right. In fact, did you want to come up and just spend just a minute just to have a look at what other people have written? Yeah, because there's some interesting differences up here, and I think that there are probably some really compelling answers for different ones. So everyone come up, have a quick look, and just make a note in your head of one that you think, okay. Huh?
I don't know if I even agree with our list.
Oh, well, our thinking can change. That's the beauty of life, right? We've thought about some of these, like her growth and the challenge, with the end of the play being that big reveal. So what I would like you to do now is, as a team, and you can use the marker pens on the table if you so wish, or you can use a different colour pen, you are going to work out what is Nora's character development. where are the points that she's evolving versus the points that maybe she doesn't evolve? Maybe she stays static. Maybe she regresses a little bit. She goes back on what she says she's going to do. I would like you to map that, okay? And then when you're finished, you can jump back on and you can have a look at this side, so you can start to think about Torvald's evolution and how that fits within the graph as well. Yeah?
Like when she regressing, would it mean that the character is developing in a negative sense, or does this mean they're not developing as much as...
Maybe they're going back on their beliefs or their value systems. So if I was to say, I am never drinking caffeine, and you see my character developing, and then I walk in with a coffee, you might go, oh yeah, she's kind of gone back on her values or what she says she's going to do at this moment. Yeah. So that's the way I see it, like regressing as in that development. Maybe her growing independence kind of takes a step back. Yeah. Might be thinking about some different moments that might help you. What are some of those like definitive moments for Nora? Yeah? All right. So as we go round, I'll do an equity card, pull it out, and that will be the first group to go, unless one group particularly wants to go first. And then I'll start the timer, and then you can start answering the questions. All right? To everyone else, I want you to be thinking, because the goal of our investigation is to be thinking about big patterns. Yeah? What do we learn about static, round, dynamic, and flat characters? How might we transfer that knowledge to other texts, like other novels, other plays, other films? All right, so as we're listening, how are we developing our knowledge around those different character types? But we will be moving towards trying to look at bigger patterns outside of this text. So if your brain is naturally making some of those connections, awesome, you can make yourself some notes. Okay, so first group up is going to be Misha's group.
He is also quite a round character because he's quite 3D in the sense that he has quite a complex life with all the societal expectations that he has to sort of live with and live up to. And we also said that he's a static character, where Nora is quite dynamic because his emotions and perspectives don't change or evolve throughout the story. Mm-hmm. The way he is in Act 1 is quite similar to the way he is in Act 3. So we think that even though Nora evolves so much and grows as a person, he stays the same or gets worse, if that makes sense, because he loses what he thought was the love of his life and the woman he would be with forever. But after the story, if there were to be a part 2, then maybe we would see that he would improve as a person to try and be better.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he is such a static character is a really key part, because with Nora, she's the most dynamic character in the entire play compared to this most static character in the entire play, which creates this dynamic where it's necessary for Nora to have this really static characters to sort of challenge her perspectives, and it makes her see as that there are norms and there are problems, and that she has to take her own action in order to change. So this led her up to all the way to the end to confront Torvald and to finally leave. And I think without this, without Torvald being so stuck to his values and to his morals and to what he defines as important, I don't think Nora would have been able to have this change and to be able to grow as a character.
Yeah, some of the deeper themes that we were discussing was personal freedom and also identity, because in the beginning she's shown as a comfortable or a submissive person, but then you can see her like her transformation from being dependent on Torvald and being independent. And we also said that it kind of highlights how this play is just it highlights their relationship, their marriage, just as a social contract rather than anything else. And yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Round of applause, please. Be thinking about some of these key concepts, all right, and you are going to be seeing if you can make some connections between the key concepts, all right. Now that Eric's back, on each table, okay, there is a set of cards that have some key concepts on them, all right? If you can't read my writing, let me know. I tried to make sure I channeled my inner primary school teacher. On each of these cards is a concept that we've been talking about, all right? You are going to make sure that everyone has at least one card. Some groups you might have 2 cards each. Yeah, maybe 3. I can't count and divide as well as I would like. You are going to have a look at your key concepts, all right? And say, for example, my 2 are flat and round. In a circle, because we can all see each other, it's a very informal circle, but we're going to go round, okay? And I'm going to say, I've got flat character. This is, and I'm going to try and define that concept. And if the person to the right of me has audience engagement, I'm going to try and explain how a flat character impacts on audience engagement. How do these 2 concepts interact? Does that make sense? All right, so can everyone in your group grab 2 cards? I think should roughly be enough, or 1 card each.
Someone in our group will get it.
Yeah.
You hold the card, and then I hold like this.
All of them are just one.
So we do it in this.
Yeah, so you're going to do it in a round,
All of my cards.
and you're going to go round
It's like a
twice.
game.
Wait, I'm still so confused.
No, you just hold it. We'll do it.
I'm sorry.
Play, I
I
think
think every group has finished now, so the last bit is to try and capture our understanding in a sentence, maybe 2. Be thinking about those bigger patterns, all right? So where you can, try to avoid saying like Nora says or Nora does this. But the question on the board I'd like you to think about, so how do playwrights' inclusion of flat, round, dynamic and static characters develop the overall impact of a dramatic work? So you've got those concept cards in front of you there. You might want to use contrast, you might not, all right? But those cards are there to help you. See if you can answer that question on your mini whiteboards, all right? And what I would ask is once you bring it down, please don't rub it off because we're going to come back to these later. All right?
If you can, just talk about the general pattern, yeah? So
But are we looking for word level analysis?
in every, yes, but what we're also doing is we're trying to like build that deeper understanding so that then when, for example, we start studying our text in grade 12 and we look at the Handmaid's Tale, you can automatically be thinking, Offred is quite a round character. However, like she's not as dynamic as what we might think, considering we spend 300 pages of a novel with her, there's very little change. Why? How does that help me to understand the deeper themes in the play? Does that make sense? So absolutely, I'm nagging you all the time for word level analysis, and you are absolutely right on that. But here I want you to think about those big patterns so that the next time you approach a text, you've got some prior knowledge that you can use to try and make some evaluations. Yeah. All right, if you finish, you can just have one more read through. And you might be thinking about other plays you might have studied. Yeah, last year, did you guys study Twelfth Night? Yeah? So you might be thinking about Twelfth Night, and you might be thinking, does this sentence ring true? And if you can, Eric, turn it into a complete sentence so that we're explaining the relationship between those key concepts. But you can be thinking, like, does this hold true in Twelfth Night? Maybe I might think about a film. Films start off as play scripts, don't they? Like, I might be thinking about, well, in the movie that I watched last week, in the Barbie movie maybe, like, who are my flat and round characters? Who are my dynamic and static? Does this sentence ring true? Does this observation, this understanding ring true in other examples? If it doesn't, we might need to use can or may. We might need a qualifier in there. Yeah.
And we're going to do another gallery walk just to have a look at other people's observations. As we walk around and you're reading other people's deeper understandings, their generalizations, their understanding of patterns, if you agree with what they say, you're going to give a tick. All right, so you're going to take your whiteboard pen with you, and if you agree with something that they say, you're going to give them a tick. All right, next to the big idea that they've shared. All right, so if I'm reading Amisha has written different types of characters, create contrast within the play that put on display an essential theme of a dramatic work, which further reinforces audience engagement. If I think, oh yeah, like this idea of contrast within the play, is created through the use of flat, round, dynamic and static characters, I might give a tick. Alright, so as you go around, have a read of other people's, tick when we agree with their observation of the patterns that they've noticed in a doll's house. Alright, so if you can stand up, have your pen in hand, go around, give a tick to where someone has written something that you agree with. Yeah? Yourselves a seat and we'll just finish off the last part. Alright. So, as we went around, we gave a little tip for things that we agree with. You also have an opportunity to read other people's definitions. I'm going to give you just 45 seconds now to have one last read through what you have written. If you would like, you can amend what you've written if you want to incorporate some extra information. Can you please then take a photograph of your whiteboard so that you can put it into your learner portfolio, okay? So have a read through, double check that you are happy with that, what you have written, that you are thinking there is nothing that I can add in light of what other people have written down that has maybe prompted my thinking. Right, that's fine. It is full, too many ideas. Yeah, that's a bit of the cold bowl. Oh, I just have too much on site. Oh, love it. All right. So if you're going to rewrite a little bit, rewrite it now. If you are finished, if you can just stack your whiteboards up, because I would like to take a photograph for my own records so that I can have a look at where our learning is. Next lesson, what we're going to do is that we're going to take these sentences, and the reason that I want to be able to take a photograph of them and to take them in is so that you can go back and you can remind yourself of what you've written. We are then going to have a look at a new example and see if our statements still hold true. Okay, so I'm going to get you to try and apply your understanding next lesson.